Hi everyone, it's Jessica. Thank you for joining me today. In today's project, I'm going to be showing you how to do a little bit of paper distressing with a stylus tool as part of a Makers with Heart video collaboration. I have gathered these three 3x4 photos of two of my kids from a recent trip to the library, and I've also pulled a couple of pieces of paper. Now, all of the Makers with Heart are working with the color Journey this month, and so I think I'm going to use some Journey cardstock for my photos. I think it works really well. And then I pulled also this piece of honey butter pattern paper from the current Mixin collection. And I really like those diagonal stripes. Actually, I love both sides, but there was some yellow in my photos and I thought that it paired really nicely with that Journey color. So I think I'm going to do a little something like this, where a little bit of that yellow peeks out of the bottom, and then I've got the majority of the top part in that Journey color. I wanted to bring in a third color, so I have grabbed a little strip of Glacier cardstock, and I'm thinking I'm probably just going to tuck it underneath right here and have that be a second layer before it hits the yellow. I'll probably use this white cardstock here to go ahead and mat my photos, but that's the general idea that I have in my head at this time. But I also want to bring in a couple of things from my stash. So I love this one. It is the date stamp. And then I've got a couple of other reading themed stamps that I thought had some cute sentiments and I might be able to work in. I don't actually end up using two of those, but I do use that date stamp one because it has a library card on it, which is so perfect. And then I had a bunch of stuff sitting on my desk because I am participating in the March album retreat from Close to My Heart. So I had these decorative thin cut shapes and I thought maybe I would want to use some banners or I don't know, circles or something. And then this is the alphabet stamp and then the stamp set that came exclusive to that album retreat. So they were on my desk. I thought I'm going to leave them out because I might be able to work them in. So to begin, I am, like I said, going to show you how to do a distressing technique with the cardstock. I'm pulling in my old paper trimmer. I just keep this with the scoring blade in it, but I'm going to actually leave that part up and grab my stylus tool here. I'm using the end that has the smaller tip, and then the side of the paper that I really want showing is the darker side. So I'm going to turn my paper over so that the dark side is facing down. So whatever side you want to be the correct side that shows, you want to flip that and turn it over so that it is facing down. And then using the stylus tool, you're just going to push into the groove of your paper trimmer and basically make a cut using the stylus tool. Usually have to run it through twice just to get all the way through the cardstock because it's nice and thick. But then once I do that, I have this really nice distressed edge. It looks like what you would get if you had an edge distressing tool, only this is much cleaner, definitely straighter than tearing. So if that's the kind of look that you're going for and you want to see that distressed white core, this is a really great way to cut your paper. So I'm going to do it one more time on that Glacier piece of cardstock, and I just need to cut a little bit of it off. So I'm just kind of lining it up on the 1/4 inch mark. Same thing, I've got the side of the paper that I want to be the true correct side that shows. I've got that facing down in my paper trimmer. And then I'm using that stylus tool, just running along, giving it some pressure and cutting my little edge off so that I can reveal that white core. And it is really fun to do this technique when you layer a couple of pieces together because, I don't know, there's just something about having those two ruffled edges together that look so sharp. Okay, so eventually I'm going to grab a little scrap piece of paper to glue all of this to and build it upon. But for now, I'm just going to lay things out here on my Versamat and kind of get a sense of what this will look like and what kind of embellishments I want to bring in. So I think maybe about like so, and then I'll put my photos there. And then, like I said, I've just kind of pulled out a bunch of old stamps from my stash and also some things that are sitting on my desk. I love this particular stamp. I don't believe it's available anymore. It is an older one, but it has this library card. This is one that apparently I had stamped for a previous project and this just tucked back into the envelope. So it's not in the color I want to use, but I'm just kind of using it as a guide to see, yes, I think that I do want to stamp and cut myself one to use as one of my embellishments. I do like that kind of tucked behind that corner. I tried it in a couple of different places, but I think that's where it's going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and, stamp that in probably some Glacier cardstock. And then I go to the decorative thin cut shapes because I want to add a little bit more to my cluster I've got going here. I thought about tucking that scalloped square under there, but I wasn't really loving that. So I'm going to grab the circle and try that instead. I felt like I was getting too many rounded corners, and I wanted something a little bit sharper there. So there's the little tab. Not big enough. I had a feeling I was going to end up reaching for this one, and sure enough I do. I'm going to use those banner pieces there. All right, I will take just a quick little bit of time here to edge distress all of my papers. So I did the mix-in yellow paper there with just some ink hitting the side of the paper. And then for the 2 pieces of cardstock, I'm going to do a little bit more distressing by grabbing my sanding disc. So I am just scraping across the edge that I did not cut with the stylus tool, just to reveal more of that white core. And I do that to the Glacier piece as well. All right, I have gone ahead and stamped some of the images from those stamp sets that I pulled out, and I did get a request not long ago to show a little bit of my coloring that I do. I mostly color with my tri-blend markers. I do love them because they have 3 colors or 3 shades of the same color all in one marker, and I find that it makes it pretty foolproof in order to get a really beautiful blend and just shaded look on your images. So I generally begin by kind of going around the outer edges with the darkest shade of the marker. And I mean, sometimes I kind of think about like if a light were shining on it, that's going to be the lightest area and the other sides of the image would be darker. But often as not, I just kind of come in and do a basic outline. I'll just go around the outer edges in the darker, and then I layer over it a little bit, coming in with the middle tone, and then in the end I fill in the center and kind of go over both of the other 2 previous shades with the lightest end of the marker. When you use that lightest end, it really does bring it all together. That's the magic of the blending. And even if at first you kind of feel like, oh gosh, that didn't blend very well at all, if you give it a little bit of time to dry and soak into the paper, it really does dry beautifully. Now, recently I did pick up this pack here of some gray Copic markers because the only markers I really had any experience with were the tri-blends, and I've heard a lot of good things about Copics, and I kind of wanted to try them, and I also was feeling the need to get a few more grays in my collection. So I just started with this. I caught them on sale somewhere, and they are lovely. And they are very juicy is one thing that I have noticed. There's a lot of color in them, and I do really like that. But they are very juicy, and I find that they do kind of bleed outside the lines if you are not careful. So what I've discovered is I have to just kind of get close to the edge of my image and then let the ink kind of seep its way through the paper, because if I get right up on my stamped line, it'll end up kind of going out into the white space where I don't want to have any color. So it's just definitely a learning curve. They are different coloring with them compared to the tri-blends. I do like them, but I could see where you would really need to build up quite a large collection in order to do that shading, just because it has only the one color in each marker. So I don't know. I think I'll stick with my tri-blends for a little bit, and I do like the gray ones though. So there are my images. I did use the coordinating thin cuts to cut those out, and then I cut out a couple of scrap pieces as well. And I'm just going to take my liquid glue and glue a whole bunch of them together so that way they are more like a chipboard piece rather than kind of a flimsy little die cut. It's something that I like to do. So while I am gluing all of that together and starting to kind of figure out exactly where I want to put my embellishments, I guess this is as good a time as any to maybe address some of the recent changes and the news that has come from close to my heart. Many of you probably know that I am a close to my heart maker. I have only been a maker for just under 4 years, but I have been an avid user, lover of close to my heart products for about 17 years. And when that news came, it was definitely a blow. I cried for days, but that day especially, I mean, I was a useless sobbing mess. My husband had to completely take over and do dinner and, take care of the kids and all the things because I was just devastated. As far as being a maker, I never have really sold very much anyway. So for me, business-wise, it wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of more of the loss of something that I love. Not only the product, but I loved being a maker and kind of being part of a community. And I really love making these YouTube videos. And I felt like being a close to my heart maker kind of gave me that platform and, a reason for which to do the videos. And so I was a little lost for a while as far as like, well, where do I go from here? I don't think I'm going to, switch over to Stampin' Up or any other company. But I think I am going to continue on making videos because I do love it, and I guess I'm just going to pull from my stash because I certainly have enough things to use in my room. I am not about to run out of paper anytime soon, and I have more than enough stamps to play with for the rest of my life. So I think I'm just going to keep creating, even though most of the things that I'm going to use are not really going to be available for anyone to buy. And I hope that that's okay, and I hope that you guys will stick with me. So yeah. That's that. So I guess time to move on. And I don't know, it is a loss, but it's still, I don't know, like I said, I still have a room full of things that I love that I get to play with, and that's the way I'm going to look at it. All right, so as I've kind of been rambling here, I've just been playing around with creating my clusters on my layout. I love that outlined alphabet thin cut. Because you do get both an outlined version in the inner part of the letters. And so I tried out both versions of the word library, but I think I'm going to go with the solid version. Before I glue any of those embellishments down that I figured out, I do want to add a couple of white splatters using my gloss spray from Dina Wakley. I don't know where I put my splatter box, so I pulled out my all-purpose mat so that way I don't get any splatters onto my desk. And all I'm doing is just unscrewing the top and then tapping my finger against it to create those splatters. I really love my white gloss spray splatters. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. And then the nice part about working on this all-purpose mat is I can just grab my stamp chamois and wipe it up, and then I don't have anything staining. So since I'm kind of doing all of the distressing in this particular layout, I went back to my sanding disc, and I'm going to do that same edge distressing, pulling off that color and revealing the white core on those two pennant banners. Now, like I said, I have a bunch of things on my desk from the March album retreat, and I've been working my way slowly through it. And one of the things that we have done in the album retreat quite a bit is to use this particular plus sign stamp to create some fun backgrounds on our embellishments and die cuts. And so I thought it would be fun to do that here. I'm just using some green on green and doing it to one of the dovetail banners. And I think that that adds just like a fun little subtle touch to it. And then since I had that stamp set out, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm going to put a little something down here at the bottom underneath my photos. I looked at a couple of different options. There are those little lines. I thought maybe kind of stamping them coming out of one part there and then like another part over here. But then I remembered that there was a row of some little open circles, and I thought, maybe that would be fun just to stamp in Journey ink and do that tone on tone right across the bottom of the picture. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And I did that off camera because, or actually I did not do that part off camera. I did all the gluing and stuff off camera because I had to put my head over top of everything, and I know you guys didn't want to see the back of my head. So now before I glue that final circle and penguin down, I figured I'd probably go ahead and do my stamping so that way I can, get it back over top when I'm done stamping. And I did end up gluing my journal strips and that little owl with the stack of books down in the honey butter section of my layout, because that way I could kind of bring all of those clusters down, and I felt like there was just kind of like a lot of empty space happening down there. Used a few other stamps to finish off my title. It just says at the library, and then there's a little phrase on this stamp set here that says looks like this, and I'm going to let that be the title. And I did stamp the date over on my library card. You know, that's when it's due, but that's just the date that we were at the library. And then some of the final touches here, again, that same little stamp set, just grabbing a couple of the little tiny ones. They look like an asterisk, and I've got a bigger one and a smaller one. And I'm going to stamp and scatter those around the page as well. That's just about it, except for then I felt like, you know what, I don't have a whole lot of yellow up top. There is some yellow in my photos, but I wanted to draw that color up just a little bit more. And you know me, I love my stitching. So I pulled out my T-square ruler, which does have a couple of holes in it and also like 2 different stitching patterns. I just went for a straight stitch, 2 different rows, and I grabbed some yellow DMC thread and just put a regular back stitch through my banners there. And I thought that was a fun little touch of yellow. The last thing I'm going to do to my layout is grab a little bit of liquid glass and put it over my owl's glasses. I love doing that whenever I have like eyeballs or glasses or things like that on my animals, because it just makes them, I don't know, it just makes them look more realistic, and it's a fun little touch. So put my little pin on the outside that I used to declog my bottle, and once that is dry, it will dry clear and look like he's got glasses on. So that's really fun. All right, guys, this is actually going to be the last regular collaboration that the Makers with Heart is going to do. We will do a couple more mystery envelope challenges, and then after that, I guess the only time will tell. But we know this is our last regularly monthly scheduled collaboration, so make sure that you check out the links in the description box down below to see how the other ladies use that color journey and what other cardstock techniques that they use. Thank you so much for all of your support over these last several years. Again, I hope you stick with me. I'm just going to keep making videos using the things I have in my craft room, and that's going to be it. So, all right, see you next time. Happy crafting. Bye.